I literally cannot believe it's happening.
It took a little more than just some Asgardian magic to make Loki look as good as it did. The Loki series was one of the MCU's most visually stunning entries yet. From the impeccably well-designed offices of the TVA to the vast reaches of the Void, or even our beloved Alligator Loki, Loki's special effects didn't disappoint. Here's a look at some of the behind-the-scenes magic of Loki.
Why the hell is there an alligator in here?
One of the biggest highlights of the season was of course the alligator variant of Loki, who took the internet by storm when he was featured in episode 5, Journey into Mystery. Since the Loki team obviously couldn't get a real alligator to play the reptilian variant, director Kate Herron revealed on Twitter that the crew settled on this blue plush googly-eyed alligator. What a cutie. Tom Hiddleston clearly convinced us in this scene, as the variant President Loki's hand is bitten by the scaly variant, especially since the one biting him was actually just a plush blue doll.
I mean, who's to say he's even a Loki variant?
He's green, isn't he?
Kate Herron has talked about how her love of monster movies greatly influenced how Alioth was integrated into episode 5. Herron cited several inspirations behind the monster's digital creation, with obvious ones being nature, thermal lighting, and volcanic eruptions. What is most surprising is that Herron was also inspired by the classic film Jaws, to wait and build up the full reveal of Alioth. Lamentis City is prominently featured in the 3rd episode, appropriately titled Lamentis. You may be surprised to learn that a huge practical set for the alien town was built entirely on a studio backlot.
Ta-da!
The art directors of the show wanted to make sure that the town had a more frontier-like aesthetic, but still have its otherworldly feel. Blacklight paint was used for several of the buildings, and the final product actually looked a bit different than it did on set. That's because during several scenes, the buildings themselves became light sources for the nighttime setting.
I have to say, one of the most amazing sets I have ever been on.
The seemingly one-take chase sequence was actually 8 or 9 shots stitched together. According to cinematographer Autumn Durald Arkapaw, it took nearly a year's worth of prep for this specific sequence. A dolly vehicle was even used to track Hiddleston and Sofia DiMartino as they made their perilous trek throughout the city.
The way that we film them, we hide them so that they feel seamless, so you feel like it's one shot from start to finish.
The cutesy Miss Minutes is simultaneously a calming presence, but also one that is intimidating. Since the team behind Loki couldn't actually create a hologram for Miss Minutes, a lamp with cardboard eyes on suitcase wheels was used as her stand-in. The lamp was also used to create Miss Minutes' luminous orange glow that she gives off. This scene from the beginning of episode 2 shows Hiddleston in his cubicle, acting against Miss Minutes' lamp stand-in.
Watch it, where's your manners?
The TVA and its architecture is one of the most unique visual aesthetics in the MCU. While a lot of the different rooms and offices in the TVA were physical sets, the organization's city-like landscape that resides outside the windows obviously required quite a bit of digital work, as can be seen in this scene in episode 2, The Variant, where Loki uses Mobius's lunch to demonstrate the Nexus events. Blue screen was used to show off the landscape that was inspired by the likes of Blade Runner and Terry Gilliam's Brazil. While the main point of this scene is the God of Mischief's demonstration, the inclusion of the background shows just how attentive to detail the team was. As Loki is stripped of his fine Asgardian leather by the TVA's robot in episode 1, Glorious Purpose, we see him literally fall into a dull office space. Instead of using CGI and full green screen, the crew used an actual trapdoor for Hiddleston to drop down into, after forcibly donning his bleak TVA jumpsuit. According to Tom Hiddleston, Richard E. Grant was the creative team's first and only choice to play the older variant of Loki. In fact, the concept art even depicted Grant as the aging variant. Grant's bright yellow and green costume is actually inspired by the costume that Loki wore in the early comics. Grant had to act out his magical powers that would be added later via visual effects.
There's only one person we thought of, and it was Richard. And if you'd said no, I don't know what we would have done, really.
The Citadel at the end of time, featured in the season finale For All Time Always, was designed to look as if it was carved from the asteroid it resides on. Behind the scenes shots reveal that some of the looming Citadel was actually on set and not just CGI magic. The Wizard of Oz served as inspiration, with the vastness of the Citadel representing the loneliness of he who remains.
This is wild.
One of the biggest reveals in all of Season 1 was easily the appearance of He Who Remains, who was in fact a variant of future MCU big baddie Kang the Conqueror. Jonathan Majors had actually joined the cast during the last week of filming, with Heron assisting with the casting. Majors' costume for He Who Remains is made to look like it comes from various different time periods. There's a Victorian cape, the shoes of Genghis Khan, and the pants are from Mongolia.
You know, you just mix and match it together and it informs the character.
Time travel is a key component in Loki, and one of the most prominent places in time Loki takes us to is the doomed city of Pompeii in episode 2.
We are from the future, right?
This sequence, while not a lengthy scene, still required the series' creative team to build a small set resembling the city from props, costumes, and even live goats. Renslayer and Sylvie are two of the biggest driving forces throughout Loki, and their fight scene at the end of episode 4, the Nexus event, was one of the most memorable fight scenes in all of season 1. Gugu Mbatha-Raw revealed the distinct differences between the two characters' fighting styles. Renslayer is much more of a tactical force, a trained soldier and rule follower. Meanwhile, Sylvie is more of a streetwise character who likes to go off the books. Even Loki himself has a different kind of fighting style, which is much more elegant and performed in a ballet-like fashion. The stunt team worked hard to make sure that the fight scene would make sense for the overall story, and if it would fit the characters we've come to know and love.
Oh wow, this woman can fight.
The time theater scene in episode 1 between Loki and Owen Wilson's Mobius is one of the more emotional and character-driven moments in season 1. As a newbie with the MCU, Wilson didn't know much about the character of Loki, which led Hiddleston to give him the background he needed to know about the character. This was nicknamed the Loki Lectures by Hiddleston. Wilson noted that these talks would often work its way into the show's dialogue. Since Marvel is privy to secrecy in all of their productions, Wilson and Hiddleston didn't know what they were watching in the sequence, with the director having to tell Hiddleston the setup so he could recall the scenes from the past films. The waiting room set in episode 1 may have been a simple set, but it was a favorite among the cast and crew. The set was designed to look compact, tight, and claustrophobic. The ceilings were only 7 feet and 6 inches from the ground, not giving Hiddleston too much headspace. The circles on the ceiling each had a light bulb with a chrome tip, almost like eyeballs watching over Loki.
Is one of our simplest sets, and yet it's a lot of people's favorite.
Renslayer's office was another example of a set that was mainly physical, but used CGI to display its exterior. The office was made to exemplify Renslayer's staunch and authoritative personality. The statues of the Timekeepers were actually on set, but the background from outside the windows was created entirely from CGI. Loki is easily one of Marvel Studios' most unique productions, and its visual style is a large reason why. It's equally story-driven, as well as providing stunning visuals that call back to classic sci-fi titles. The series definitely served its glorious purpose. What was your favorite moment from Loki?